All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of GRG Talks. I am joined by Realtor Tim Lynch. Tim, thanks for coming on the podcast again.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Tim, as some of you might know, he appeared on our special Veterans Day podcast, which was actually one of the most listened to podcasts we had. So congratulations on that, and thank you for doing that. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about how to make your home into an investment property. And we're going to start off with a concept that I think everybody kind of knows about is, should you even do it to begin with? Mm-hmm. So we'll start there, Tim. First of all, can you talk a little bit about some of the different types of things you can do with an investment property? So like rental properties, multifamily homes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to your original question of should somebody, and really it all comes down to what is your ultimate goal, mm-hmm. right? Do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to have investment properties out there generating cash flow for you, gaining additional equity for you? And that's one great way to take your primary residence and move out of that and turn that into a rental property is if you live in your home for 2 out of the last 5 years, you can write off your capital gains for that tax-free. Wow. So you can gain, as a single person, you can gain up to $250,000 and $500,000 as a couple, tax-free. So again, if you live there for 2 out of the last 5 years, so if you live there for 2 years, rent it for the next 3, turn around and sell it, and if you have $250,000 worth of equity gained in that home, mm-hmm. You can take that income as tax-free money.
That's awesome.
Additionally, over those last 3 years as a rental property, you have significant tax advantages. Your depreciation, you have your write-offs for any sort of maintenance or repairs you do to the property, mm-hmm. and then also obviously someone is paying your mortgage down for you over that time frame as well.
Yeah.
So great benefits. It doesn't have to be a single-family home. It's anything 4 units or less. So if you own and live in 1 unit of a duplex, a triplex, a 4-unit, that is considered a primary residence for you, and all that the same information I just talked about applies. So there's a lot of advantage to doing it, turning your primary into a rental. If you want to move every 5 years, you can gain a lot of income doing it that way. Mm-hmm. So it's a real interesting ability for a lot of homeowners to do.
So let's say a person owns a duplex, mm-hmm. and let's say they even live on one side of the duplex, and they're considering turning the other side into an investment property, one that they'll be able to rent out to people. What sort of things should they keep in mind as they start to think about doing that potentially?
Yeah, so if you're living in one side, you can rent out the other side right away and help that tenant pay your mortgage for you. Keeping in mind that if the toilet leaks, if the sink leaks, the faucet needs to be replaced, that's on you unless you hire a property manager. Then they can take care of all that for you. They can take care of the collection of the rents, take care of security deposits, any sort of repairs. So again, going into thinking about things a little bit ahead of time is, do you want to be the landlord yourself, or do you want to hire somebody to do that for you? So it just depends on each person's different. I hire a property manager for everything, so I can keep my time at home with my family, but it's everybody's, whatever everybody wants to do.
Is there do they come at a point where you say, well, if I have one investment property, right, that's one that I can take care of myself, that'll be okay. Mm-hmm. But if you get up to about 5, then you're talking about you probably do need a property manager to help you with all those. I mean, is it really just kind of how you feel, or is it, at a certain point would you make recommendations?
Yeah, I think it's all just personal preference. I mean, you could always start as the property manager yourself and see if you like it, and then if you don't, transition into hiring somebody to manage the property for you. But it's just all comes down to personal preference and what you want to do with your time. If you want to truly make this a passive investment for yourself and only gaining equity and cash flow, then day one, I would recommend hiring a property manager, so then it's completely passive for you and the property manager takes care of everything on your behalf. But again, it's just all personal preference.
What types of property do you think make good good personal investment properties?
Boy, that's a tough one. I think every different type of property has their own pros and their cons. You can have a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, a smaller home, so smaller flooring to have to replace, smaller amounts of walls to paint, smaller kitchen, obviously a smaller rental amount for those properties, but also a smaller purchase price. So again, it just all comes down to what kind of metric do you use for a successful investment property? Are you using cash on cash return?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using internal rate of return? So, equating your equity position in the property, the equity growth, the mortgage buy down. So again, it just kind of depends on how you personally view your investment properties and how you view them as a successful one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think every property can be an investment property. A waterfront home, there's people looking to rent those. There's people looking to rent, again, a 2-bed, 1-bath, 800 square foot house. There's tenant for every property out there. Mm-hmm. So just thinking about what is your personal metric that you use for successful investment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've dealt with this very often, but what about like Airbnb, VRBO? I mean, I don't even know if here, except with the exception of the summertime, is potentially a vacation destination, like, Arizona houses and things like that. But what's your thoughts on not necessarily looking to change your home into an investment property where a family lives for an extended period of time, but more like an Airbnb or VRBO where it's like a family lives in there for a week and then you try to fill it again later? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that one's interesting. And Olympia is a fairly decent market for that. Through your summer months, you have your traditional Airbnb type, daily, weekly rentals that you talked about. But then the other component that Olympia has is we have legislative session. So
that's right.
You can use your house for a midterm rental, 2-3 months at a time. We have lots of traveling nurses for our hospitals around here. So that's another avenue that you could utilize, kind of a less than 1-year term, midterm rental, we would call those as well. So, thinking each individual property is totally different in how you want to analyze it, but that is something that can definitely gain you more income, more monthly revenue by doing it on a short-term basis. You have more turnover, so you got to consider that. You have to supply all the furnishings, so again, considering the how much of those furnishings cost. You want to get low maintenance, easy cleaning type materials on your couches, especially. Maybe you want to think about LVP flooring versus carpet, again, because it's easier to maintain, easier to clean. Also, we'll rent for a little bit more, typically. So really having to consider everything when it comes to Airbnb, short-term, midterm rentals. There's a lot more things to consider about it, but there's certainly a high opportunity for larger cash gains monthly doing it that way.
Okay. I didn't even think about legislative session. Yeah, you have some of these places that for 3 or 4 months could just be... Yeah, that's excellent. This is definitely an interesting market we're in right now. We did have a discussion a couple weeks ago on one of our previous podcasts with Quint Newell and Max Stottlemyre about office investment property around here and what that looks like a little bit with state employment the way it is. But when we look at home property, home investments like this, where you're talking about renting it out, is it still a market that you think people could benefit from here?
I do, especially if you're turning your existing home into a rental property. Your existing mortgage is going to be, conceivably, I shouldn't say it is, but most likely it's lower than current rates. So by turning your current home into an investment property, you have a lower interest rate on that home right now than you do on something if you bought new right now. But if you're looking to buy something new for an investment property, I mean, interest rates have stabilized. We've seen them even decline a little bit here recently. So hopefully that trend continues. But yeah, prices are coming down. Buyers have some more negotiating room to get repairs, to get concessions towards closing costs, to get price reductions, things of that nature. So the market is definitely shifting to becoming more of a neutral or maybe potentially even buyer's market right now, to where you can find those investments out there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. And you don't think if they're looking at sort of the rent payments with the potential for mortgage for the actual mortgage monthly payment to be a little high, you don't think that those rents would get too high and make them cost prohibitive for folks to rent it out, or it would still be in pretty good shape?
No, it'll still be pretty good shape. I mean, the supply on the rental market is pretty low.
Yeah.
So general economics, supply and demand.
Yeah.
So if the supply is low and the demand is high, you're in a pretty good position. So we don't anticipate rental prices to continue appreciating like they have over the last couple of years. They'll probably stabilize.
Okay.
But we don't see them declining again because supply just simply won't allow it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't bank on or count on the rents to continue appreciating like we've seen over the last couple of years.
Right, they've been pretty tough to watch.
They've been going quickly, escalating quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't anticipate that trend continuing, but I do see that rents are considerably higher now than they were a couple years ago, and will maintain the mortgage payments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess final as we close out here to kind of finish up talking about this particular topic for you here locally. What should somebody in your experience, do you see people going out and looking specifically for investment, like they go to a home looking to see if it can be an investment property? Or do you find that most folks live in a home for a while and then are thinking about moving or diversifying and then turn the original home into the investment property? How do you usually see that work?
I see it both ways.
Okay.
It's probably a lot more common for an investor to buy an investment property versus a current homeowner turning their existing residence into a rental. Mm-hmm. It's more common to see just the traditional investor, but we are starting to see a lot more people kind of think and see, especially with all the equity they've gained over the last couple of years, and see how prices are continuing to go up. We do anticipate more of a traditional appreciation over the next coming years, 2 to 5%. Not like we've seen over the last couple of years, but so with that in mind, a lot of people have started to consider taking their existing home, maybe pulling some of that equity out to purchase their next property, but then keeping that home to continue gain that long-term equity, gain the cash flow, or potentially sell it in 3 years because they can get those capital gains tax-free. Yeah. So there's a lot more people out there starting to think a little more investment savvy versus just, hey, I'm gonna buy my primary residence, sell my primary residence, and buy another one. Yeah. So it's really exciting because one thing that I think it's really neat to have you on is, I think for some folks, the idea of becoming a person who owns an investment property can be intimidating. Yeah. Because it was intimidating to buy the house you live in currently, right? The idea of then, well, how do I go through it? What are the hoops? I mean, is it even worth it? I think to have you be able to come on and kind of simplify that a little bit, I think gives some folks some hope. You don't end up having to be this real estate mogul or tycoon, but you can actually really benefit from having an investment property. Yeah, particularly if you hire a property manager. Again, I mean, you can be pretty hands off. The only communication you get is from the property manager themselves, ideally just monthly with here's your owner disbursement. Yeah. It's really hands off when you hire somebody. So again, going back to how do you as an individual how much involvement do you want in this property? Do you want to be turning the wrench or swinging the hammer to make all the repairs, or do you want to have someone do that for you? So it's becoming more common, and I think that trend will continue because real estate is a very, very good investment, in my opinion. It's one that you have control over versus, say, stock market or crypto or something like that, where you don't have any control over it. It's controlled by it's yours. So real estate, you have that control. You can update the house and to appreciate it yourself, so you have more ability to maintain ownership of the property and ownership of your investment. Exciting stuff. Tim, thank you very much for coming on the podcast and talking a little bit about investment properties. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.